Does True Geordie's podcast interview with David Icke really show us that there's another world out there? Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to On Me Head, Son. I hope you're all well. If you like what I do here, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications bell for all future videos. So, True Geordie, the popular YouTuber, podcaster, he recently interviewed David Icke. He's a very well-known conspiracy theorist, I suppose you could say, from the UK. He was very high up in BBC many years ago as a sports presenter, and then everybody started to think he was a bit of a crackpot for some of the things that he was coming out with and a lot of the conspiracy theories. So he's kind of been operating in this underworld, as it were, not out of the public eye, but out of the mainstream for many, many years. This is David Icke, this is. But True Geordie had a recent podcast with him. It's actually a return interview because he did one a few years ago with him. Lots of people are asking questions. Well, are the things that he's saying now, are they real? Is there any truth to it? Is there any facts behind it? But what the interesting thing here is that the original podcast video, according to True Geordie, got over 1 million views. It was deleted by YouTube. So this has just flamed the conspiracy fire even more. They've actually taken down the video. They've deleted it. That video with David Icke. So why? Why has this happened? Now, there doesn't seem to be any real explanation behind it. Probably True Geordie knows, or maybe he doesn't even know himself. Maybe he's wondering what the hell is going on here. So now what True Geordie has done, yeah, quite rightly, he's clipped up the podcast into half-hour segments, 40-minute segments, and he's going to be publishing that. Now, I believe the very first publication of this clipped-up version has got well over 1 million views as well. People are hungry for this kind of information, and they're probably even more hungry for it because they know that YouTube deleted it. So why did they delete it? Is it that they just don't want people to say these kinds of things? Or is it what he was saying in the podcast interview? Was it too inflammatory that maybe YouTube themselves have got pressure put upon them by the powers that be, these powers that lurk in the shadows, the kinds of shadows that David Icke has been talking about? Maybe there is some truth to what he's saying. Okay, let me just reel this back a bit. The problem with what David Icke says, and this is kind of what goes along with a lot of credible conspiracy theorists, is that a lot of what they say is very plausible. A lot of what they can claim, yeah, seems logical. But one of the problems is that a lot of what they say, for me at least, is what is known in scientific terms as pseudoscience. It's pseudoscientific. In other words, it's a theory, but it's not based upon any observable facts. It's not scientific, and it's what is known as making non-falsifiable claims. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that what David Icke himself is saying is non-falsifiable, but it just seems as if that when you're listening to him talk and when you're listening to True Geordie's kind of questions or probing questions, you're kind of taken along this ride. You think, oh yeah, okay, I get that. I think there's some plausibility there. There's some logic there. Then all of a sudden he comes out with something else and you think, no, you've lost me now. No, you almost had me, but then you've lost me again. And what it is for me, it's not necessarily what claims he's making, but it's the lack of evidence and the lack of support. He'll say something like, oh yes, to back this up, there was a NASA computer scientist who came out and said, the world is all a big simulation. Well, how do we know that that person from NASA leaving wasn't a crackpot himself, didn't have some kind of nervous breakdown, then all of a sudden, he's making these kinds of statements? We don't know the veracity of those claims. We don't know how legitimate any of this is. But even I, the skeptic among skeptics, even I am puzzled why YouTube decided to delete True Geordie's video. Now, it'd be very interesting to see if they continue to delete the clipped up versions. It'll be very interesting to see if True Geordie comes out with any kind of explanation or any kind of insight into why the video might have been deleted, or any communication with YouTube themselves. Perhaps he won't want to do that. Perhaps he'll think, this might jeopardize my relationship with YouTube or being on the platform. Never forget that being on YouTube is that we're playing in their playground. We're playing with their rules. A lot of the time, we don't know what those rules are. We don't know, as content creators, if we're doing something right or we're doing something wrong. Sometimes the policies that they have are so vague, and sometimes they might change it up just very quickly. Then all of a sudden you think, well, what's going on here? Very recently, there have been some other content creators, some very big content creators, who have been overnight demonetized for hate speech. It's not hate speech. What they say, I've seen their channels. It's more about interpersonal relationships and how men think, how women think. But it's not hate speech. So what is the problem here? Is it about freedom of speech? Or is it that YouTube, or the likes of YouTube, or those powers that lurk in the shadows, all they want us as the public, the YouTube viewing public, all they want us to do is just keep on watching videos of funny dogs and funny cats, or YouTubers just doing funny pranks on each other, or the likes of Mr. Beast, who's just making these outlandish videos. Are they just trying to make sure that all we watch, all we produce is that kind of content? And as soon as we start talking about anything serious, anything that questions governments, questions policy, like what happened under COVID, where you weren't allowed to talk about COVID, you weren't allowed to question COVID, because all of a sudden your video would be taken down. A lot of those videos that were made at the time about COVID or anti-COVID policy, the banner was saying you can't believe in the misinformation or something. They're legitimate reasons here. Well, we know a lot of those policies and a lot of the thinking at the time was flawed. But you were kind of silenced at the time. I said to myself at the time, there's no point in fighting the system. There's no point in making content that is going to jeopardize what you want to achieve on YouTube. Now, luckily, my other channel is all about motorcycles. So, hey, who cares about what the content that I'm making? Nobody's going to lose any sleep over that. This channel is predominantly about sports, but I've now added a little bit of social reactions to it as well. And this is what this video is about. But really, nobody's going to be that bothered about the sports reactions that I do on this channel either. So at some point, if you're going to be talking about social issues, and if your channel gets big enough that you start to have some kind of influence on the population, or certainly an influence on the youth, and maybe that influence doesn't fall into line with what those people in the shadows, lurking in the shadows, want you to have, then all of a sudden there's a conflict here. Now, obviously, this fuels that conspiracy theory once again. The Matrix. Lots of people are quoting The Matrix now. Andrew Tate keeps on talking about The Matrix. David Icke talks about The Matrix. True Geordie's kind of talking about this Matrix as well, whether you believe it or not. But for me, whilst I think it's very interesting why somebody's video was taken down and why other channels are being demonetized, and big channels this is, what this definitely shows me that on platforms, we are school children playing in the adult's playground. We cannot have ultimate freedom of choice, because at some point it's going to conflict with the powers that be. So what does that mean? Well, then you have to take your freedom of speech and put it on a platform that will welcome it. So lots of these content creators now are going over to Rumble. But how long will it take Rumble to start imposing these kinds of restrictions on content creators? Okay, so then you take it off that platform and you have your own platform. You have your own server. You run it off your own website. Well, that only works if you've got a huge following, a cult following, who wants to follow you there anyway. Overwhelming majority, 99.99999 of all content creators don't have that power. They only have an audience because they're on YouTube, or they're on TikTok, or they're on Rumble, or whatever other platform, any other popular platform like Twitter, for example, or X, whatever it's called now. As soon as you take them off that platform, it's very hard to take their audience away to somewhere else. And this has been proven time and time again. You try and take your audience away from one platform and take them to another platform, they may not follow you there. So whilst I think it's interesting about the whole conspiracy theory about who's pulling the strings in society and who's pulling the strings on platforms like YouTube, I certainly feel that with the likes of David Icke, I just want to see more evidence, scientific evidence, observable facts, observable evidence that we can make a real decision, that we can gain an informed opinion on. And until we have that, all we have is just people spouting off theories and linking in other theories. It's theory upon theory upon theory. Why was True Geordie's original video deleted? I have no idea. Perhaps it was on the basis of some kind of perceived hate speech within what David Icke was saying. Maybe the algorithm of YouTube, which actually codes all the videos, it's gone through the dialogue on that video and it's determined that what he was saying was wrong, was inflammatory, was hate speech, whatever it is. It could be that. It could be that the YouTube system, the algorithm, has coded that video and it's determined that it should not be allowed, and then the system has actually deleted it. And maybe not even a person. Maybe that's even more of a worry for everybody. The influence of AI, and how is that going to change all our lives in the future? We've all seen the Terminator, Judgment Day. Are we really heading that way, where the AI determines what we as people can think and say and do? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell for all future videos, and I'll catch you again on another video, hopefully not influenced by AI. Ta-da.